There are over 700,000 sexual offenders in the United States alone. With all the social media these days, how can we protect ourselves and our children from these despicable predators?
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast, where we discuss what events lead up to making a predator, how any form of abuse as a child can contribute to the making of a criminal, and most importantly, what we can all do to protect ourselves and our children.
It was January 14th, 2018 in Paris, California. Two young girls escaped out the window of a house. Afraid of what her captor might do when he found them, one of the girls returned, but the other kept running. She couldn't bear the thought of returning to the misery she had been planning to escape for over 2 years.
She was carrying a cell phone that she had taken from the house, and when she was ready, dialed 911. Police arrived and found a girl they assumed was only 10 years old. Later, they would find out she was a 17-year-old victim of abuse. She showed them pictures of a home with terrible living conditions, and her captor and abuser were her own parents.
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast. I'm Rosie.
And I'm Ryan. Since this is our first podcast, we want to tell you why we started it. I've developed a passion for true crime podcasts and all podcasts after my wife Rosie was listening to Generation Y and asked me if she could listen to it while we were hanging out together at home. She has always been interested in true crime because she has been the victim of sexual abuse as a child.
And in this podcast, we want to spread awareness for parents and others who could help protect children and say something if they see the signs of strange living conditions or abuse. We also hope that sharing these stories will help victims find their voice and confidence to open up about their own experiences and confide in a trusted adult if they've been abused.
In each podcast, we will start by telling the story of what happened, then we will have a brief discussion about our own thoughts on the story. Police arrived at the house after seeing the photos. On the outside, it looked very nice, though it was kind of messy, large and expensive looking. But when they went inside, they found a house of horrors.
They found 12 other children, siblings of the girl, and one of the siblings was shackled to a bed with chains, and the police had reason to suspect that 2 of the other children were also chained just before they had arrived. The police assumed that all the 13 children were minors based on their appearance, but later they would find out that they ranged from age 2 all the way to 29. 7 of them were legal adults, but they were so malnourished that they looked like children.
The mother, Louise Turpin, reportedly looked perplexed by the arrival of the police. She was unable to provide any logical or appropriate reason the children were restrained in the way that they were. Of course, is there any good reason for that? The children were taken away to Riverside County Regional Medical Center for treatment. What kind of parents would provide these kind of living conditions for their own children?
The father, David Allen Turpin, seemed like a normal smart guy growing up. He was the treasurer of the Bible Club, co-captain of the chess club, and part of the science club, and a cappella. A cappella. Why do you have an A?
That's how it's spelled.
A capital A?
Here, I'll do that.
He was a treasurer of the Bible Club, co-captain of the chess club, and part of the science club and a cappella choir. He graduated Virginia Tech in 1979 as a computer engineer.
Louise Turpin seemed to have a more troubled past. Her sister Elizabeth spoke about abuse that they both endured as children by a close family member, but they were told not to speak up about it. Elizabeth remembers Louise protecting her as much as she could. When their parents would fight, Louise would hold her younger sister and cover her ears. Elizabeth always thought Louise would make the perfect mother.
David and Louise dated for a year. When she was 16 and he was 23, they ran away from their family and eloped, angering her father, Pastor Wayne Robinette. Is that how you say that?
Yep.
Is it? Okay. They experimented with different religions, like Pentecostalism and the Quiverful movement, which involved procreating as much as possible, abstaining from birth control, and viewing children as a gift from God.
Kind of ironic for the way they turned out. They bought a house in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
What's so funny?
Your ironic comment. It's just funny that you sprinkled that in. Go ahead.
So the parents bought a house in Fort Worth, Texas, and began having children. After their fourth child, Louise's sister Elizabeth moved in with them for the summer during her college. She began to notice strange behavior. They were so strict on the older daughter that she needed permission to come out of her room. The children were told not to speak to Elizabeth.
Elizabeth also noted that when the oldest daughter was brought out of her room to eat, she had to make some kind of eye contact with her mom, and then her mom would make some kind of gesture, but it was almost like their own secret language, and nod and smile to her daughter and tell her that she could eat.
Interesting.
So Louise's sister Elizabeth wasn't allowed to make phone calls, have people over, or tell anyone where she lived. She was only allowed to leave for work. And Elizabeth recalls David flirting with her and making her feel comfortable almost all the time.
Uncomfortable?
That's what you said. That's what you wrote.
You said feel comfortable.
I did?
Yeah, it's okay.
This drove her crazy, and she would lock herself in the bathroom and take showers to escape. But her sister Louise would pick the bathroom lock and let David in the bathroom. They would make Elizabeth get out of the shower so that David could watch her.
They began homeschooling the kids. Even though David earned a six-figure income, they were in so much debt that they had to abandon their house and move to Rio Vista for a while, until the same thing happened there. In both cases, the new owners and the neighbors of the house found disgusting sights, one assuming that it was caused by animals. But they found feces throughout the home, beds with ropes tied to them, several dead cats and dogs in a trailer, and large piles of garbage around the property. These were the conditions these poor children had to live in. The neighbors did not report their findings to any authorities, but it probably would have been a good opportunity.
One of the house owners, when they returned to the house, they saw a lot of scratches on the backs of doors and dried blood in the carpet.
Oh, I forgot about that.
People that interacted with the family, like the bankruptcy lawyer, described the couple's appearance as normal. But Elizabeth said in an interview that she tried for decades to talk to her nieces and nephews, but the parents wouldn't let her. Also, another note is that the parents would get their... It's so hard to remember all the words.
No, just what were you going to say?
They would get their vows renewed every 10 years or so, and they went to the same place over and over, the Elvis Chapel. And the Elvis impersonator thought it was very strange that all the kids were so pale and so skinny. So there's one guy who noticed something.
Again, another opportunity that was missed.
Remember, in 2018, the oldest daughter was 29, so this nightmare lasted almost 3 whole decades for her.
So David and Louise were arrested the day the police found the house on suspicion of child endangerment and torture, and the bail was set at $9 million. Each? Wow. In their search, police recovered hundreds of journals written by the children, which will hopefully provide insight to what was really happening in this house. On January 18th, the couple were charged with 12 counts of torture and false imprisonment, 7 counts of abuse on a dependent adult, and 6 counts of child abuse. David also got a charge for a lewd act on a child under 14. These charges could lead to 94 years in prison. Of course, they pled not guilty. Thankfully, on July 24th, the prosecution requested a restraining order on the Turpin's parents, forbidding contact with their children for 3 years, and the judge accepted. This includes staying at least 100 yards away physically and no contact through social media or electronic means. The one good thing I can say is that at least the parents agreed to this. A month later, on February 23rd, 3 more charges of child abuse were filed against the couple and 1 felony assault charge against Louise. The preliminary hearing is set for May 14th, 2018.
Oh, so we're really coming up on that.
Yeah, so hopefully the trial goes as well as the investigation.
It was $12 million per person for bail.
12 million? Wikipedia, you were wrong. Interesting. I wonder if that went up after the new charges.
Maybe.
All right. Well, what do you think about it? This is my thoughts, so.
Well, the takeaway, it's a pretty sad story, and it only got sadder. Some of the reports say that after all the children were found, most of them were separated in different group homes, in different foster homes. So their chances of normalcy are pretty low, especially since their relationships that they've only known for their whole lives are now split apart.
Yeah, true. I can't imagine the damage that living and growing up in that situation cause you the rest of your life. And even if you do get back on your feet, there's got to be depression that comes up in the future. I wish someone would have said something sooner, you know. But I know they're technically innocent until proven guilty, but I don't know how the parents could plead not guilty to this. That part's ridiculous to me. I would say if you notice suspicious activity in a house with children, or if you were treated inappropriately by a family member, please find someone you trust to confide in and don't sweep it under the rug. Speak up. The neighbors who came across the aftermath didn't report to the authorities, like we said earlier.
I think that's also really important, more than the victim speaking up, is people who are surrounding the situation and notice that things aren't right, but they don't say anything. Like all those different things that were in the house, like the feces and the scratches on the doors and the dried blood in the carpet.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty hard to just say that was an animal and not a person.
Yeah, no kidding. It's sad because socially, I mean, we naturally want to see the best in people and not suspect people without a reasonable cause. But a house full of children living on a property full of dead animals, trash, crap inside the house, it should be reported. And I'm hoping that we can all take this story and learn from it.
And if you see something, say something. Help protect the hopeless and helpless children out there.
It's kind of heartbreaking to see, but the girl who escaped posted videos prior to her escape of her singing original songs on YouTube, and you see partially the living conditions in the house, but what's more sad is just seeing her trying to cope with what she was dealing with through her music. So I don't know if they're still up, but the news coverage with her identity concealed shows samples of her music, and you should definitely check it out if your heart can handle it. Also, the story has been covered on 2020, Dr. Phil, Megyn Kelly Today, and Dr. Oz. So if you're interested in other information, definitely check those out.
Especially try to keep the story updated once the trial goes through.
Yeah, we might do another episode on this story once we get all the results. So, thank you for listening, and don't forget to leave us a review if you enjoyed the podcast. Also, visit our Patreon if you'd like to support us and help us keep spreading this message. Feel free to share your personal stories with us and let us know if you'd like to share yours on the show. Remember, if you see something, say something.
And remember, this is our first podcast, so be easy on us.
For real. Hopefully we'll get more natural sounding as we make more podcasts, but we kind of want to tell the story in a captivating way and then give our conversation on it. So thanks again for listening, and tune in next time.